so much of the Bible is about waiting on God. If God is teaching you to trust, which he always is, if he's teaching you to trust, he's usually making you wait. Waiting and trusting go together. And so I look at Noah waited on God. Abraham waited on God. Isaac waited on God. Jacob waited on God. Joseph waited a long time for God. Ruth is waiting on God. David, I'm like, I get it. Faith is about waiting. Learning to trust is about learning to wait. And what he says in Galatians 6:9, I love this. He says, do not be weary in well-doing. Or don't get worn out in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. If you do not give up, I wonder how many times faith was supposed to be about waiting and I couldn't wait long enough. Yeah, this is a special place. First of all, I don't hang out with pastors very much. I know I am one, so that's kind of hypocritical. But my best friend is your pastor, and we have done just some life together. And I was thinking, because I know your family, and I see the difference and how you guys are set apart, how you're called, how you've persevered. The reason this house is being blessed is because you guys have made a choice to be faithful to the calling that God's given you. The reason you have a building now in New York, which isn't easy, by the way. It's one thing to pastor a church. It's another thing to plant and build one. So would you just give it up for your pastors, because they're special. Don't make me get emotional. And we laugh really hard. But I was thinking, when people go to a church, there's so much stuff that happens and you wonder, am I safe here? Yes. Can I trust the leaders here? Yes. Is this a place that I can come and plant and grow? For sure. In fact, I gave an offering. I know. Yeah, I knew that would make a pastor clap. Come on. Yeah, because I got to experience you guys, and I realized this is good soil. And the Lord put that in my heart, and I'm like, I have a church, and they probably need my money too. But I was here, and this is good soil, and I'm hearing testimonies, and I'm meeting people, and I'm like, no, I want to put something in this ground. I want to see some seed grow here. So I'm thankful to be here. Thank you guys for having me. And I can already, I see the way y'all are looking at me. He said he was bringing a man from Florida. He didn't say he was bringing Florida man. Right? That's different. That's what y'all know about Florida. It's like Florida man. This man looks like he wrestles alligators on his lunch break. I have killed some gators in my day, for sure. And I know it's so different. The New York vibe and the Florida vibe is kind of like, my peninsula is something you people don't understand. Why are they like that down there? Why don't they want to pay high taxes? We don't understand. Why do they like freedom so much? We don't get it. Why do they want to run around unmasked and having guns on them? Listen, what you don't know about my peninsula, people, we got the pythons now that are just let loose. We got pythons, we have alligators, we have sharks, we have New Yorkers. We have to be armed. It's wild down there. And y'all don't hate on my state because it's where you all retire there. So, no, I'm excited to be here. And I was thinking about, so Easter service was amazing. Pastor Wayne was gushing about all that God did. And you guys, you had an amazing attendance and just all the people that came, the services packed, and you saw God moving. And then the week after Easter, it's like, what do you preach about? And I was thinking, wow, it's still on our minds, the resurrection. The resurrection. But here's the thing about the resurrection that a lot of us miss. It's not just historical, it's personal. And the resurrection isn't just something Jesus did for us, but it's actually a promise he offers to us. And so there's another resurrection that I want to talk about today. It's in John chapter 11. John chapter 11. And this is the promise that Jesus makes. This is the resurrection of Lazarus we're going to talk about. But this is where Jesus in verse 25, he says, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. He says, makes that $1 million promise, but he follows it up with the $1 million question. And he says, do you believe this? He actually asks a question right there. He says, do you believe this? And it's interesting to me. I'm like, why did Jesus make such a bold statement? He makes so many bold statements. I'm the way, the truth, the life. Here he says, I'm the resurrection and the life. But he says, do you believe this? And I think he must have known I was going to preach this in New York. Right? Like, do you believe this? I mean, you're New Yorkers. Are you not just a little skeptical? I'm not saying all the stereotypes are true from, what Florida people think of New York people in New York, but I'm saying you guys are a little bit jaded. Like, let me put it this way. How many of you would say you have a deep trust in your politicians? That's none. And some of you are politicians. Okay. How many would say, like, I really trust the government. I feel like the government has our best interest in mind. It's always making my decisions for me, and I'm so glad that they use my money for my good. No. I love the government. I love the government. Say that a couple times into the phone, and you should be good. No audits. We've lost trust, right? Our banking system. Like, we're all like, what happened? Why is inflation? Why can't I buy eggs anymore? Who is the Federal Reserve? They're not federal, and there is no reserve. Documentaries, people, come on. So I just think about all the ways we've been let down and lied to and misrepresented, and we don't know what or who we can trust. Corporations, the people that make our products, we can trust them, right? You ever see those commercials? Like, where I live, because this is where we all retire, all the commercials are about medication. So you get these commercials like, this drug could change your life if you take it. But then at the end of a 5-minute commercial, like, may cause heart attack, projectile vomiting, seizures, spontaneous combustion. You're like, what? I'd rather be congested than combusted. What is wrong with this medication? Like, but they have to warn us. But so we get jaded. We get let down. We get cynical. Even church and religious institutions, we find out, have let us down. And we've been systematically lied to and betrayed. So it becomes a very hard thing to trust. So then when you got Jesus coming out with statements like, I am the resurrection and the life. If you live by believing in me, you'll never die. That's the pitch. But like, I think most of us would be like, but what's the catch? What's the catch? What's the backside? What's really going on here? What's the end of the commercial? Especially if you know the context. John 11, we're going to get into this. But the context of Jesus' promise is he's talking to Martha and Mary, and they are sisters who have lost their brother Lazarus, who, by the way, was a close personal friend of Jesus. When Lazarus gets sick, Mary and Martha send word to Jesus, the one you love is sick. Well, they were trying to tell him, come and heal him. You're the healer, come heal. But he doesn't come. So Mary and Martha are very disappointed, very let down. And Jesus not only didn't come, he waited for days in order to come. And now, Lazarus isn't just sick, he's dead. And he's dead. We're going to find out he's been dead for like 4 days. Like, he's gone. And so Jesus is making the declaration, I'm the resurrection and the life. That's a great pitch, but the catch is he's already dead. When he says, do you believe this? I want to say yes, but that's a tough yes in light of the situation, right? So John chapter 11, and I borrowed someone's Bible today. So I'm trying to, but it's got notes all through it. What's her name? Debbie. Y'all, Debbie's a saint. She's up in this word. She's got notes, creases, sweat drops of blood. She's just like following the Lord. I love it. But her font is tiny. She must wear readers. Okay, we're in John chapter 11, and starting with verse 17. On his arrival, so Jesus waited, but he gets there. Jesus found that Lazarus, his friend, the one he loves, had been already in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day. I know I go to church and I hear this stuff and I want to believe, but I'm also struggling right now. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she told him, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world. Like, I believe what you're saying. Here's what I believe. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. And after she had said this, she went back. She called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and he's asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and she went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Shortest verse in the Bible, one of the most powerful. Jesus wept. Whew. Our God sees, he feels, he's with us. He doesn't miss anything. When we hurt, he hurts alongside of us. Whew. It's so powerful that this is the kind of God we have. He's present and he feels with us. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Any armchair quarterbacks in the house? You don't just watch sports, you narrate sports. Come on, New Yorkers. I know how y'all are because I have some friends from up here. And when we watch sports, movies, or even television, y'all talk to the TV. And you talk with your hands. And you're loud. It's amazing. Like when New Yorkers move to Florida, Floridians are nervous. Like we paid to watch the movie, but all we can hear is them talking to the movie. But you do this with sports. It's funny to me, man, when you get riled up with sports because you'll question the referees. You'll yell at the players. You'll yell at the coaches. I've got some family members from Pittsburgh. The Northeast Italians, man, I'll tell you what, you don't watch football, furniture gets broken. Sometimes family members get broken. Like it gets wild. So, but isn't it funny when somebody will be sitting there and because maybe you played JV, Pee Wee, Powder Puff, backup, whatever, you feel like you have the right to question a professional athlete that's trained their whole life. How could he drop that ball? And it's like, well, to be fair, you needed help getting out of your lazy boy, okay? You rarely have enough oxygen to bend over and tie your own shoes. That's how he dropped that ball because it was a difficult catch. But we love to play armchair quarterback. And it's funny when we do it with the game. It's a little frightening that we do it with God. We will question God. If only, woulda, coulda, shoulda, why didn't you? And this isn't what I wanted. And we question God. And so if you look in John chapter 11, that's what's happening. Martha, then Mary, his disciples have done it. The whole crowd is questioning Jesus. They're playing armchair quarterback. And what were you thinking? Why didn't you come if you would have only had been here? And what Jesus invites them and us to do is to see past our situation. What he invites them to do is see beyond the problem and to embrace the promise that is bigger than their problem. He invites them to see the truth that transcends their trial. And while they're all focused on the problem, he gives them a promise. He says, I am. This is, but I am. I am the resurrection and the life. And he says, but do you believe this? Do you believe the pitch despite the catch? The pitch is, I'm life. The catch is, he's already dead. Sometimes it's hard to believe in spite of your situation, right? It's hard to believe in light of loss. And I think what Jesus is doing here, he's saying, can you see past the problem and embrace the promise? Can you embrace, or do you see the truth that transcends the trial? And that's a tough thing to do. It's easy to say amen in church. It's hard to leave here and trust God in the middle of a trial. Trust God through tragedy. And some of you are in that season. If you're not now, if you're not in a tough season right now, you will be. Let's pray. That was encouraging. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you so much. If you're not now, you just were, and you might be again, because in this world, you will have trouble. He's overcome this world, though. And so there's promise for every problem. There's truth that transcends every trial. I got to grab it and I got to find it, especially when times get tough, especially when financial hardship hits, when family division hits, when sexual temptation hits, when betrayal from friends hits my life. That's when I've got to learn to trust. And here's what I found out. It's hard to hope when you hurt. It's hard to hear promise when the problems are so loud. Romans 8:18, I consider that our present sufferings, the stuff we're going through right now, not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Thank you, Lord. There are problems for sure, but there is promise that is far greater than any problem that I'm going through right now. He says it's glory. There's glory in your story. Did you know that? I don't know what chapter you're in right now, but if you're not to the glory part yet, keep going because you're not there. If it's not good yet, God's not done yet. There's glory in your story. If you're not to the glory, you keep going, you keep believing, you keep trusting, you keep hoping, you keep holding on. And in John chapter 11, what we see is that before Jesus does anything about the problem, he declares the promise because God's promise is always greater than our problems. God's promise is always greater than our problems. So before I deal with the problem, let me declare the promise. Before I speak into your trial, let me speak the truth that transcends the trial. Martha, I love Martha because, when you got friends and they're honest, that's helpful. Pastor Wayne is that kind of friend for me. It's why we don't hang out that often. It's so honest. And you know how, anyway, he pries too much. But he's helped me a lot. He'll go, why do you feel that way? And do you think it's healthy that you feel that way? I'm like, easy, Pastor. But he cares, And so Martha, though, they have the kind of relationship where they're honest. I love this, that Jesus, when we're around him, he's not religious. He doesn't need us to be fake. What the people closest to Jesus did, they told him the truth. And she says, where were you? If only you would have been here. She said, but even now, you could still, even now, Jesus, even though you were 4 days late, even now you could do something about it. Have you noticed that God takes his time? If you've been following God for a while, God is always on time, but he's rarely on my time. People that know him could say that, right? Yep, okay, God is always on time, but he's almost never on my time. And so I'm like, Lord, why? God will make you wait. Sometimes you're waiting on God because part of trusting God is waiting on God. And I'm like, God, why do you make me wait? He says, well, with me, a day is like 1,000 years and 1,000 years like a day. I'm like, well, that's tough to be in a relationship with somebody that has those time management principles, right? Try dating somebody that's like, well, hey, girl, I tried to pick you up 900 years ago. Well, with me, doesn't work. Oh, my daughter. Okay, so waiting is my worst quality. It's just like I'm not good at it. Y'all are from New York. And, so for me, when I don't just catch red lights, I catch the whole red light. Like first place loser. When you pull up and you're the first one at a red light, you lose. Like, thank you. Just got here. I get to wait the whole time. My daughter's 14. She's always making fun of me. She's like, Dad, God is teaching you patience. I'm like, why can't he just give me patience? Why does he have to teach me patience, right? But I pull up, there's a light right outside my neighborhood. I catch it every time. Every time. She's just like, hee hee hee. I'm like, you're not going to college. I know you guys can't relate. You're like, why do you stop at a red light? You're from New York. You just honk and keep going. It's catching on down there. Thank you for moving. It really helps. Waiting, I'm so bad at the other day. Okay, so Chick-fil-A is what we do in Florida. We get that church chicken. That's what we're about. I pull into Chick-fil-A and it divides into two lines. On the one hand, there are 5 cars. On the other side, there's 1 car. Which lane did I go in? The 1 car, right? I ain't playing no games. I'm trying to get some chicken. So I pull over here, but when I pull up, I realize it's a minivan. And it's not just a minivan, it's a minivan stuffed with people. Like one of those circus vehicles, and they keep getting out. The clown, you're like, wow, how'd they get so many people? They're doing a group order, and I'm stuck. And all the people that I could have been behind are going ahead of me. I'm just watching them and waving, and I'm stuck behind a minivan, and I noticed the license plate. They're from Canada. I'm not making any judgments. I'm just saying if you drove over 2,000 miles for chicken, you ain't in a hurry. Oh, Canada, here they are, and they're taking their time. And new people are pulling up, and they're going ahead. And then we get to the window, and they got their order wrong, of course, because it's a group order. Who got extra pickles? Somebody got no pickles. And so I'm just waiting there. And I'm like, I know it's unreasonable to dislike an entire country because of one minivan. So pray for me, because that's where I'm at right now, okay? Here's my thing. When I'm reading John 11, and I see that they sent word to Jesus, the one you love is sick, and he intentionally delayed. He was intentionally delinquent. He did not go when they asked. He made them wait. I'm like, Lord, why? So many times in our life, this is Jesus. And Mary's like, where were you? Martha's like, where were you? The disciples, why aren't we going? The Jews are like, man, if he could have done something if he would have showed up. And then I look at the Bible and I realize it's very interesting that so much of the Bible is about waiting on God. If God is teaching you to trust, which he always is, if he's teaching you to trust, he's usually making you wait. Waiting and trusting go together. And so I look at Noah waited on God. Abraham waited on God. Isaac waited on God. Jacob waited on God. Joseph waited a long time for God. Ruth is waiting on God. David, I'm like, I get it. Faith is about waiting. Learning to trust is about learning to wait. And what he says in Galatians 6:9, I love this. He says, do not be weary in well-doing. Or don't get worn out in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. If you do not give up, I wonder how many times faith was supposed to be about waiting and I couldn't wait long enough. Here's what I figured out about God. I've been a pastor a long time, 27 and a half years. Been a professional Christian. Thank you very much. Thank you. Been following God a lot longer than that. And I look back and I go, okay, so here's the thing about God. God will make you wait, for sure. I got to let you know that. God will make you wait. But I can say this. Been following him since I was a little guy. God will make you wait, but he will always make it worth it. If God makes you wait, he makes sure it's worth it. And I'll even say this, the longer he makes you wait, the better it's going to be. God will make you wait, but he'll make sure that it's worth it. And the longer he makes you wait, the better it's going to be. I'm married. Maybe some of you are married. Like for me, I'll be like, baby, we got to get going. I'm looking at my watch. Like, what is she doing? I go to check on her. And doors are closed. Machines are going. Heat's coming out from under the door. I don't know what's happening. I just hear noises. And I'm like, we got to get going. What's going on? She's like, whoosh. I'm like, don't come in here, the great and powerful Oz. Then she comes out, and I'm like, what? Her hair's twisted. She's 4 inches taller. I don't even know what's happening right now. I'm like, she made me wait, but it was worth the wait. When she makes me wait, there's a wow in the wait. It happens. And God is the same way. If he makes you wait, he'll make you wow. It'll be worth the wait. And that's why Isaiah says, they that, what? Wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. In the kingdom, the waiters are the winners. The ones who win are the ones who are willing to wait on God. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They will mount up on wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint. Are we willing to wait on God at the proper time? If you do not give up, God takes his time, but check this out, but he never takes time off. God takes his time, but he never takes time off. He is always working for our good and for his glory. But I got to trust him to do it. He'll make you wait, but he'll make it worth it. And the longer he makes it wait, the better it's going to be. Where are my waiters at? Some of you waiting on God? Come on, Lord. I've already waited my 1,000 years. If you read this passage, it's interesting to me. You read this passage because Jesus, when he does finally show up, a sickness is now a funeral. And so a lot of people are very disappointed in him. And when he shows up late, not just late, but days late, doesn't apologize. Rude. And that is the moment he and Wayne would no longer be friends. I'm a punctual person. You know, you get nervous when you're hanging out with me. He's like, I better not be late. I'm thinking like if you and I are in a relationship and we've got a plan and you're late, all you need to do is two things. I need an apology and an excuse. And it's actually kind of common, right? If you show up late and somebody's been waiting on you, you're usually like, oh, sorry, traffic. That's it. That's all you got to do. Apology, excuse. That's all I need. Jesus shows up a couple days late. Everybody's mad, doesn't say anything. It's like, You know, why didn't you? And if you only hadn't, and chariot traffic, am I right? Nothing. Doesn't offer an apology. Instead, he offers a promise. He doesn't give them an excuse. He points them to the truth. He recenters them on the reality of who he is and what he can do. See, so often I think we're trying to get God to fix things, and God is really trying to fix us. I found that we want God to fix our problems, but God is fixing the people. Man, I don't know. God may fix some problems sometimes, and he has for me, but I've noticed that God is more interested in fixing the person than the problem. And he uses the problems to fix the person. I want God to fix my situation. He says, no, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of your faith, who, by the way, Hebrews 12:2, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Jesus went to the cross, but he didn't stop at the cross. Jesus, he went through the problems, but he didn't stop at the problems. He pushed through the problems because he saw the promise on the other side of the problem. For the joy set before him, I can go through this problem because I know there's a promise, and I'm going to keep going. There's glory in my story, and I'm not there yet. So I'm going to keep pushing and persevering and pressing on, because here's the truth I want us to get. On the other side of your disappointment, some of you are in the season of disappointment. It hasn't happened. Is it going to happen? I'm struggling. Why hasn't it happened? Where have you been? Why have you let it get? I asked you to make it better. You allowed it to get worse. On the other side of your disappointment lies your destiny. Can you get through the disappointment so that you can get on to the destiny? Don't let disappointment rob you of God's destiny for your life. Because whatever it feels like right now, it's worth it. It's achieving an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. It's not even worth comparing. Don't let your problems rob you of God's promise. Our light, 2 Corinthians 4:17, our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. What a beautiful thing. Right now, in your life and in mine, God is allowing discouragement. He's allowing disappointment. He may even be allowing despair because he's using it to advance your destiny. Can I get to the destiny? Can I make it through the disappointment to get to the destiny that he has for me? Whatever you're dealing with right now, if God is making you wait, listen, he's going to make it worth it. Trust him. God is always on time. He may not be on your time. Trust him. Can you wait? Because, we say it's not over until what? It's over, right? It's not over till it's over. God says it's not over even after it's over. That's the whole point of resurrection. It's not over even long after it's been over. And I love this in John 11:14. It says, so he told them plainly, they're all asking, why didn't we go? And he says, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Like, I could have gone and I could have healed him. Basic, easy, I'm Jesus, no big deal. You'd have been like, another healing. But for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't there, because now instead of a healing, there's going to be a resurrection. And I may not have showed up when you thought I should. I made you wait, but I'm going to make it worth it. And I am now going to do the thing that only I can do. I've had a lot of disappointment in my life. I've had a lot of hurt in my life. I know some people think like, well, the pastors are the ones immune to the problems, right? We're the ones that just, we get up here and we can smile because I feel like you don't get to talk about trusting God unless you've had to trust God. You don't get to preach about waiting on God unless you've waited on God. You don't get to talk to people about disappointment unless you've been disappointed. And I know in my life, things I prayed for that I thought for sure, God, you're going to do this. And he didn't. And I thought it was going to go this way, and it went the I remember when we got the diagnosis. We have 4 children, Robin and I, and 3 are now young adults, and our youngest, Jayla, is 14. She has spina bifida. I remember when they told us, and they started talking to us about abortion, and just didn't have the framework to understand in this moment what's happening. Well, she's going to be born this way, and she's going to have these things, and most people in this situation would, and just like, Lord, what do you want us to do? And I'm going to start praying. And I'm going to pray that little girl is not born with a disability. And she was. And then we heard some other complications from her situation. We're like, I'm going to pray that she doesn't need those surgeries. And she did. But every time, the Lord would just say, just wait. Just wait. You don't know why now, but you will. You'll see. And I'll never forget. It was about a year ago. And the Lord put on Jayla's heart to share her testimony. She had been dealing with some things. She had just turned 13 years old. And I want you to see this video of how God used her at student life at Real Life Church.
In my life, I was mad at God for making me the way I am, like different in a wheelchair. But after that season was over, God revealed to me that it's okay to be different, and He had a purpose for making me that way. And this right here is that purpose. He used me to impact other lives. And so I am so honored and privileged to get this opportunity to do this. You have no idea how excited I am, but I'm also nervous. And then my spina bifida did bring me closer to God this year when He spoke to me for the first time. He showed me He had me in His arms and He cared for me. And He was with me every day and every step of the way. Since before I was born. Like Psalm 139 says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Your destiny is on the other side of your disappointment. If you can wait, if you can trust, if you can believe. God's promise for your life is just past the problems in your life right now. If you can wait, if you can trust, if you can hold on just a little bit longer. And I want to tell you something. With God, what feels like a setback is usually just a setup for Him to show up and do what only He can do. So let me get it back to John 11 real quick. We're closing with this in verse 38. The story's obviously not over because we haven't seen it. Jesus, once more deeply moved, He came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, He said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man. They're not even calling Him His name at this point. He's gone. By this time, there's a bad odor, for He has been there 4 days. Man, she can't let it go. Jesus, where were you? By this time, even now, come on. Like, Jesus, where were you? 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you. You've heard me. I knew that you always standing here. When He had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth. He's a mummy. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Where's he going? I don't know, but he's going somewhere because he's been in the tomb. He was dead and now he's alive again. Take the clothes off and let him go. Let him run because he's free. I'm the resurrection and the life. And when I show up, I show off. I'll make you wait, but I'll make it worth it. And that setback is really just a setup for me to show up and show off and do what only I can do. And that's what He does for Lazarus and Mary and Martha. That's what He wants to do in our life. Whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're struggling with, please don't let your disappointment rob you of God's destiny for your life, because it's worth it. He's making you wait, but I promise you it's going to be worth the wait. And today I believe that Jesus is standing at the mouth of some tombs, at the entrance of some closed off places. You know, where He says, I'm the resurrection and the life, and whoever lives by believing in me will live even though he dies. I think while Lazarus was dead but was able to live again, some of us are still alive, but we're a little bit dead. And because of some hurt, we're in the tomb. And Jesus is standing at the mouth of the tomb, calling us by name because He loves us. He knows us. He sees us. He's crazy about us. And He's saying, come out of there. I know you're in that tomb of discouragement, of doubt, of disbelief, of fear, of hurt. of unforgiveness, of sin and shame and addiction. I'm calling you out today because I'm the resurrection and the life. And if you're hearing my voice, there's still time. If you're hearing my voice, you still can. He says, do you believe this? Do you believe this? Lazarus heard Jesus' voice and he came on out. Do you hear his voice today? Revelation chapter 3 says, I stand at the door and knock. If you just open the door, he loves you. He's got a plan for you. And while he's allowed some things that you may not understand, that you may not agree with, whatever he's doing right now, that disappointment is advancing your destiny if you'll trust him to do it. He's calling today. I wonder who is hearing his voice. He says, I'm the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me will never die, and whoever lives by believing in me. Do you believe this? That's the question he leaves us with today. The resurrection has a question, and it's, do you believe it?